Good morning and welcome to Worldwide Wisdom. Today we're going to learn about level 4 and 5 of meditation as taught by Rebbe Chaim Kesselman, one of the most famous, iconic mentors, mashpiyim of Yeshiva Samchet Tzimim, of the Lubavitch Yeshiva, the Chabad Yeshiva in Kfar Chabad. He is one of the spiritual leaders of the Chabad movement of the previous generation, and I'm honored today to share the highest two levels of meditation as taught by this very celebrated chassid. We're talking about coping with the chaos of life. It's a discourse we're learning that was taught by the Alter Rebbe in the year 1807, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, 1807. And it's talking about the flood of Noach, just to refresh your memories. What happened with the flood of Noach was that God destroyed the world in this very messy way. And the Alter Rebbe points out that the reason why God destroyed the world in such a messy way was not only because he was trying to destroy the world, but rather because he was trying to purify the world, as in the process of a mikveh. God was trying to purify the world because, as counterintuitive as it sounds, the troubles we face are there not to destroy us, but to purify us. They're there not to break us, but to build us. Just like Noach and his family were elevated physically in the ark that sailed above the waters, so too, when we face a flood in our lives, it's there in order to pick us up, not to break us, not to crash us down. In exactly the same way, King Solomon writes in the Song of Songs, he calls the flood of Noach. He calls it the flood of Noach. No, I say Isaiah was the one who calls it the flood of Noach, which is a bit of a contradiction. It's an oxymoron to say the flood of Noach. I mean, flood means chaos, destruction. Noach means serenity, tranquility, peace. How can it be the destruction of tranquility? It's an oxymoron. Here the Alter Rebbe derives from Yeshayahu, the prophet, that in fact the deeper intention of the flood was not to destroy, but to build, to bring peace and serenity, not destruction, to cleanse. And that's why the King Solomon says that great waters, Mayim Rabim, it's the name of this discourse. Mayim Rabim, great waters, will not be able to extinguish the love of the soul's natural connection to God. On the contrary, when the Haras Leishtafu and the rivers won't be able to wash it away, on the contrary, they will build it up. Applying this on a very personal, practical level, the Alter Rebbe explained to us that the flood is the financial challenges that we face in our lives. The flood is when we feel overwhelmed by our financial anxieties. We all are Noach. And you've got a choice. Are you going to heed the call of the flood, or are you going to build the boat, or are you going to just die, right? You're going to sink or sail. Yes?
Just financial trouble?
So he speaks over here in the discourse, Alter Rebbe, about financial anxieties, but I would imagine that would extend to all the headaches of life, such as health challenges, nachas challenges, relationship problems. I think my understanding of this is that it refers to all of the anxieties of our lives. Perhaps most common is financial anxieties, because the financial anxiety is a resource that we by default don't have. You know what's more precious, time or money? Time. Why? Money you can always get more of. Time you can never get more of, right? Yep. You know, we're born with an abundance of time. We're born with a scarcity of money, typically, right? Later on in life, it flips around. You know, it goes that there's always three blessings that human beings need: health, wealth, health, wealth, and time. You can only get two out of the three most of the time. Think about it. When in your first part of your life, you have plenty of time in your hands, you have plenty of health, but you have no money, right? Then you come to your middle age, you're working like a meshugana, you're making money, 30s, 40s, right? You're making money, you got your health, but you got no time. Then you reach the sunset years, you got more time than you need. You got your wealth, but now you're doing medical tourism, right? So you always get two out of the three. There's always a headache. And that's by divine design, by the way, because God gives us problems in order to keep us on our toes. That's what this discourse is all about. It's not that God created a broken world, a world that doesn't work properly. No, the world is exactly the way God wanted it to be. Exactly. He created us with a lack, with some sort of scarcity. See, that's why I love questions. Thank you for that question. You just asked me a little question. You set me off here. It's great, fantastic. So yeah, yeah. So I think that by divine design, we weren't placed into this world as a retirement village with all our luxuries taken care of. We were placed into this world with a deficiency bias. There's always going to be a deficiency. Every single person that you meet is fighting a battle that you know nothing about, right? So be kind to every single person. If you think they have money, have you checked in their marriage? If you think they have great marriage, have you checked on their kids? If you think they got great kids, have you checked on their own personal traumas? People have got all sorts of demons and problems and headaches, and these are our floods. Now, the purpose of the flood is there in order to lift us up. The question is, how can a flood lift us up? The Alter Rebbe gets very specific here, and he says that the way the flood lifts us up is through meditation. When we encounter a problem, and instead of allowing the problem to control us, we control the problem. Don't tell your God how big your problems are. Tell your problems how big your God is. If you're able to take on that approach, that courageous approach, then you actually neutralize the problem. Now, we've already spoken about 5 levels of meditation. We spoke about level 1, which was, remember anybody? Remember what level 1 was? Mental replay. Mental review, mental replay. Just play it back in your mind. You heard an amazing sermon. You learned a beautiful Mayim. You heard an incredible speech you just asked me about before. Fantastic. So play it back in your mind. Just replay. Go rewind. You know, we used to in the tape recorders, rewind, pause, stop, and play. Right, the old thing. Just play it back in your mind a couple times. Right, that's number 1. Level 2 is
be able to explain without using the original word.
Exactly. Replay, but in your own words.
Right.
Don't use the original words of the discourse. You're learning a mimer here? Can you say this whole thing about the flood without using the F word? Without using the flood? Right?
You get to use one. You just can't
Right?
use the whole string. More than 4 words doesn't count.
You know, the Alter Rebbe had a brother, Rebbe Leib, who once expressed himself, and he said that you don't properly understand the Maimer discourse until you can repeat it without saying one single word of the original discourse. You know, people like to use words like realm and dimension, the upper realm, the lower realm. What's a realm? Dimensions, the concept of stop it, let go. Paradigms, fancy words that we don't really understand, right? Wow, we have a guest from Coral Springs. Kimmy, nice to meet you from Coral Springs. There's somebody from New Mexico. Looking forward to a great class of Chabad today in Kabbalah. Fantastic. Good. It's my pleasure, Kristen. Working all the time means plenty of money but no time. Yep, that's right. Shalom. Good. Okay, great. Back to business over here. So, what's level 3? What's level 3? Level 3, we said, is the ADHD meditation. Just open up your mind, let it be a lightning rod to attract like a magnetic attraction to any idea that comes to your mind about that particular concept. So whatever it is that you're thinking about, just allow your mind to be an open vessel to receive whatever signals come your way, and you'll find some very, very interesting ideas that come your way. In other words, now you're getting into a very creative process where you're allowing yourself, it's really a chachma mindset. Remember chachma bina das? Chachma is the Chabad, right? Chachma is ideas, inspiration. Bina is understanding, and das is feeling. So chachma is inspiration. It's allowing yourself to be an open vessel, question mark. What comes to mind? Just sit quietly and allow your mind to fill up. Like a syringe. When you pull a syringe, the vacuum draws in the blood, right? So that is level 3. Now today we're going to talk about level 4 and level 5. So what is level 4 and level 5? Level 4, well, if level 3 was chachma, was opening your mind, making yourself an empty vessel so that you can receive the light. Remember what instigates chachma. This is Chabad. Remember, guys, if you're new here to this class, remember the Chabad is not a denomination of Judaism. It's a movement inspired by intellectual pursuit. The word Chabad is an acronym for 3 words, Chachma Bina Das, which are the 3 steps of intellectual processing of anything. We're intellectually processing godliness, mysticism, divinity, purpose. That's what Chabad is. Chabad is a movement that seeks to understand and feel the presence of God in every encounter and experience. So the 3 levels of Chachma Bina Das. How do you reach Chachma, which is the idea? You got to have the humility of a question marks. Ask a question. And then open up your mind. That's where you get lightning strike. You know, when you go like, right? Lightning strike ideas that comes from having the humility to ask a question. You know, I once had a lawyer at my Shabbos table. And this guy, he knew the answer to every single question without thinking. It was amazing. It's an amazing experience. So one time I tested him. I said, what is the connection between a Hanukkah and a mezuzah? Like in 1 second, he started just rattling it out. And I don't mean that in a positive way because, you know, he just started like,
Detail.
he just started like saying, he just started talking. And sometimes you need to have the humility of a question mark of saying, I don't know. 3 of the most powerful words in the English language are I don't know, because when you say you don't know, it means that everything else that you do say means you actually do know what you're talking about. But if you know everything, maybe you know nothing, right? Chachma is the ability to ask a question with a question mark and say, I don't know something, and allowing the inspiration to flow your way. That's level, right? That's level 3 meditation. Bina is understanding. Bina is understanding, right? That's more level 1. Like replaying the idea in your head. It's Bina. It's easy. It's like replaying the idea in your head. You already understood it, you understand it again. Level 2 is a hybrid between Chachma and Bina because you're replaying, but you're doing it in your own words. So there's more creativity there. But now we're moving to level 4 and 5. Level 4 and 5 is moving into Das. How you enter Chachma, we said, is through a question mark, is through having humility, through saying, I don't know something. Then comes the answer, the Barakah Maverick, the lightning strike, as Tanya calls it. In chapter 3, this is an inspirational infusion of an idea. How do you reach Bina? Bina happens by dwelling on the concept that was inspired into your brain, the idea. You take an idea and you flesh it out. You think about it in length and in breadth. Now, the idea becomes understood. It's not just an idea that's like hovering above your head. Now it's in your head. That's Bina, that's understanding. But in order to get to level 3, to the 3rd level of intellect, of Das, which is feeling, that happens through meditation. You can't, to reach Chachma, you need to just say, I don't know. To reach Bina, you need to think about something. But to reach Das, you need to go to the depth of the idea, which means just sit on it. And we're talking about the 5 levels of meditation right now. Specifically, how do you reach a feeling is when you take an idea that you've already understood. If you haven't yet understood it, you're going from Chachma to Bina, from 1 to 2, from idea to understanding. You can't feel if you don't understand it yet. Das only begins after you've understood. Entirely understood. Now, most people in the secular world that we live in, when they've understood an idea, they close the book, they go home, they go do something else. But as Chabadniks, what we do is when we finished understanding a concept, now we close the book and now we marinate on that idea. Like a steak marinating in the sauce for 24 hours. Because the longer it sits in the sauce, the more flavor, right? The more flavor. I'm no chef, but I've heard about this concept, right? Marinates. You want the idea to marinate in your brain. How often do you find somebody thinking? Imagine you go to somebody and say, hey, what are you doing, Warren? And the guy says, I'm thinking. You'd be like, what's wrong with you? Right? Who thinks today? Why do you have to think? We're the non-think generation because everything is instant, right? Instant internet, instant Wi-Fi, instant baby food, right?
Gen AI.
Yeah, everything's AI. I mean, who needs to think today? No. To be a Chabadnik means that you allow yourself, after you've understood the idea, to think about it. You got to let it marinate, let it sit. Before davening, you got to sit there. Now, when you enter level 4, what you're doing is that you're focused on an idea, not in order to understand it, because you've already understood it in Bina. You're focused on the idea in order to feel it, in order to reach an emotional reaction. It's focused on reaching an emotional reaction. For example, if you think about your spouse, not because you're trying to figure them out, but you just reflect on your spouse of how much you appreciate them. That's it. Just think about their qualities. You know what's going to happen? And you're directing it towards an emotion. What's going to happen is very soon you're going to feel so grateful, so happy, so much love. This is level 4 meditation, you don't need to figure out your spouse. And maybe some people do, but imagine that you do it and you understand your spouse. You've lived together for several years. And now you're not here to sort of understand them. No, you want to feel them.
So it's emotive.
It's emotive, exactly. Whilst the previous meditations might have had some emotive impact, this one is more direct. It's more focused. Emotive.
Brings
Yeah.
emotion.
Emotive.
Sorry.
Let me give you an example of this meditation. Let me give you a meditation example of level 4. You ready? Work with me here, please. Das seems like the balance point between Chochmah and Bina. I don't think so, Matthew. Das is not the balance point between Chochmah and Bina. I like what you're saying, but I don't necessarily agree with you. I'll tell you why. Well, again, I don't know if I understand what you mean by balance point. Das makes it yours. It makes it from something which is objective, it makes it subjective. That's all it is. So I don't know, maybe I don't understand what balance point is, but whatever, that's my comment. Is that what balance point means? Connection?
No, that's what das is, connection.
Right.
Connecting to it.
Right. In other words, das means you're connecting the train. That is like, it's going to flow. It's going to stream, right? It's going to be mine, right? Let's do this meditation together, right? It's very, very simple. Let's do an emotive meditation. I want you to think for a moment. Feel free to close your eyes if you want to. I want you to imagine yourself in a stadium. Imagine you're in a stadium, and the stadium's got thousands of people in the stands. Thousands of people in the stands. And you're on the field. You're not a player, but you're just looking around. And I want you to look at the faces of the people in the stadium. Just look at the faces. Look at the bodies. Notice their skin color. Notice their hair. See if you can identify their interests. You know, somebody's got a nose ring. Somebody's got tattoos. That's right. Tomahawk haircuts. Maybe somebody's wearing a Chabad hat and jacket. You can tell a lot from people by just looking at them. Beards. Maybe they're wearing T-shirts that have certain slogans of rock and roll bands. Look closely at the people. Identify 3 people in the crowd. Are they happy? Are they sad? Can you notice their backgrounds? Maybe you can tell what their job is. Maybe there's a painter who's got paint on his hands. Maybe there's a handyman who's got the belt, you know, the handyman's belt. See if you can identify some of their anxieties. Maybe you can tell just by looking at them, who's happy, who's laughing from the bottom of their heart, and who's got a look of anxiety on their face. Now, I want you to notice what sport is being played in the field. By the way, can you notice the allergies? If anybody has allergies in the stadium, in the stands? You notice any allergies? Somebody sneezing? Now, notice how each of these people that you're looking at exists where? Exists in your own mind. That's the only place these people exist right now. They only exist in your own mind. Which means their physical makeup is the material of our mind. And now, I want you to reflect on the fact. I want you to reflect on the fact that exactly in the same way that this whole stadium and its people in the stands is a product of your own mind's imagination. I want you to reflect on the fact that the entire reality of this world is the product of Hashem's imagination. God imagined this world into being. He merely spoke, and it came to be. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam. Blessed is he who spoke, and the world came into being. I want you to reflect on this for a moment. Think deeply about this. Move from the stadium's faces to your neighbors on your street. Think about your banker. Think about your house. Think about your car. Think about your bank account. And think about how all of that is all within the imagination of Hashem, who creates the world merely by speaking it into being. Take a deep breath as you reflect on how everything that exists is a part of Hashem. Nothing is outside of God. Like that stadium, which exists only in your mind. And now, I want you to reflect on Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, God is the only power. God is one. There is nothing outside of God. This means not only that God is the only God, it means that God is the only existence. Nothing exists outside of God. And as you, just before you open your eyes, I want you to mouth these words of Shema Yisrael. Say the full sentence to yourself. Hashem Echad. God is the only being that exists. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Try to see what just happened to you. Can anybody share if you're feeling any form of emotion towards Hashem? Are you feeling any calmer? Are you feeling any happier? Are you feeling any lighter? Anyone want to comment?
I don't feel any different.
That's fine. Yeah, Mendel?
When I think about, when you say Shema Yisrael, Adonai is God, the Yud and the Dalet, at the beginning and the end, and there's that thing of Ayin Dalet, it's that witness. It's, means witness.
Ayin Dalet is the two large letters in Shema.
And you think of that witness.
Which means witness, yeah.
And I'm there.
You're the witness.
In my mind, we're witnessing the presence of.
So you feel that in the Shema, there's two large letters, Ayin and Dalet, which means witness, because you were witnessing God's unity. So you felt God. You felt that? Did you feel an emotion?
It felt the lightness of peace.
You felt the lightness of peace. Good. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else feel something? Steve, you felt anything?
I did, and it relates to something I just learned yesterday, Tahara B'Tachon,
Gate of trust. Okay.
and feeling secure that God controls everything, and what is intended by God.
Beautiful. Mendel, go ahead.
It's going back into that. So when I'm sitting there in that stadium, and the people and the place, and they're all looking at the action, and it's all just characters in the stage that we're witnessing that God created. That's what I was.
Good. Now, what might happen, and it doesn't sound like anybody reached a particular emotion, but it seems like you started to feel something.
Yeah.
Now,
I don't know.
Now, it's got to do with how focused you are, with how you're able to follow me, with what other anxieties are going on in your mind right now, with what are distractions. Now, your heart might be more hardened, by the way, if you've never done this before. I'm serious. If you've never created an emotion, think about that. When's the last time you created an emotion? You shop for tomatoes, you don't shop for emotions. When in fact, a Chabadnik does shop for emotions. This morning. See, here's a guy that understands that he controls his emotions, whereas you might not understand that. You might not be there yet, which is fine. It's all part of what we're learning right now, which is that mind controls the heart, means your emotions don't control you. You control them. You choose them. Meditation creates emotions. If your heart, think of a parched earth that hasn't had water in like a decade, right? It's cracked, it's broken, it's sharp. And suddenly you throw a bucket of water on it, it's not going to grow just yet. You know what I mean? You got to let it sit a while, right? So this is an idea that I want you to get comfortable with. Number one, that you can control your emotions. How to control your emotions. We learned today about level 4. We did not yet touch on level 5. I'm sorry, I ran out of time. But level 4 is such that you're focusing your thoughts in order to be able to conjure an emotion. And I want you to use the text of the discourse to review in order to see how you can conjure up an emotion. There's a lot of comments coming in. Let me just see. Somebody going to say something? Yeah, Andy.
So we want to conquer emotions like moach,
Absolutely, you want to conquer emotions, not by breaking them, but by controlling them. Emotions are like oxen. They're not there to be killed. They're there to be directed. right? You don't want to break your emotion. You want to just channel it. In other words, you don't want to just say, well, today I happen to be in a bad mood, so there's nothing I can do about it. No, you can do something about it. You can change the way that you feel. The way you change the way you feel is by changing your CD. If you change the CD in this CD tray, your brain, then you feel other things. You don't have to be the slave to your whatever happens to be going on in your heart right now. If you don't like the movie, then change the disc, right? You change, put a different disc, it's a different movie playing. If you're feeling anxiety today about your health or about your money, then why do you have to dwell on your problem? How about you dwell on the solution? How about you take your time today to make a conscious effort not to think about what I don't have in order to think about what I do have, not to think about how helpless I am, but rather to think about how empowered I am because I know the boss of the universe. I've got a direct line to him, the one who creates everything through his own mind. Everything exists inside of God's mind. And if I can just appeal to him, I'll be okay. Think not about what you don't have, think about what you do. That's what's going to create an emotion. This is level 4, which is going to lead to a whole new level of feeling. Too much understanding means knowing. Can we read the Shema as a mantra? Absolutely. To be repeated multiple times a day, at least 2 times a day when you wake up in the morning, when you go to sleep at night, for sure. Just at least twice a day, just to keep you in balance. Who said that? That was Almighty here. When I look into the world with the Shema in mind, I see less negative and less myself and more of the beauty of creation. That's right. That's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. So Hanan says, I feel my body not trembling, something like this. Like feeling cold. Okay, that's nice. We create all emotions. Very nice. I like that. May I request scriptural evidence for this idea? We're learning this in the discourse. That's what we're learning right here. It's meditation. It's Mayim Rabim of the Alter Rebbe. We do not fear the bear. We label the sweating and heart rate as an emotion. I feel serious. I feel a tension. Good. Das reminds me of the throat. Okay, I don't know what that is. Incredible timing, Rabbi, from Dubai. I just joined you as starting to say the Shema. Wow, tears. Beautiful, Rachel. Thank you very much. Modern psychology calls this positive psychology. Good. What?
It's also cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, CBT.
It was more CBT than positive psychology.
You know, it's interesting. I went into this weekend, anxiety, was this and that. I talked to Michael about this. And when I was there, I thought, being there in the presence, just taking everything in, I was able to change.
So I'm going to try to diagnose what you're describing.
Yeah.
What you're describing is that you came in with negative thoughts and therefore negative feelings. You came into a place which was positive energy, so you became positive thoughts and you became positive feelings. You don't need to go to New York in order to get positive thoughts. You can do that for free, right here, right now, at any moment, at any place.
I could have been in that positive thing and still in my negative thoughts. I had to rechannel what was going on in me. It's interesting in golf. Like I took lessons yesterday, and my mind's all over the place. It's when I just relax, breathe out, and I just.
So look, modern psychology tells us today to relax ourselves, to meditate on nothing. Chassidus tells us to meditate on something. Don't just clear your mind, fill it up with light. Your mind can never be empty. Let me just read inside the text here for a moment. Good. I just wanted to bring out that contrast. Good. I should read a little tiny bit of text on page 164. How we're moving into level 4. When someone deeply considers all this, what we learned above, how God is in full control of every detail of the world. The meditation we did today. By the way, the meditation which I did was actually a level 2 meditation. Because what did I do? I took the previous paragraph of page 164 and I put it into my own words. The whole analogy of the stadium was not in the text at the beginning of 164. I repeated it in my own words, right? So you see, I did a level 2 meditation with you leading, focused on level 4, which is emotion. When someone deeply considers all this, their soul ignites with love and yearning. Like fiery flames, wanting to escape the darkness of physical constraints and connect directly to God himself. Blessed be he. That's what I want to read. I just want to read that one line. That this meditation leads to feeling. We'll talk about level 5 next time, but for right now, I'm going to end it over here, folks. Have a great day. Hi, Yossi. Nice to see you.